Well, good morning, good afternoon. I'm coming to you live from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and where I'm spending the part of the summer. Very blue zone area, very walkable community on a lake. I'm no more than 400 feet from any park. If you live in Minneapolis, has one of the highest life expectancy, one of the highest levels of happiness. But we're here today. I'm here to spend a little time with a friend I made on Instagram. You know, people they sort of come on and you like something they said. Pretty soon you're following them, then they're following you, and all of a sudden you kind of become virtual friends. But today is the first time we're kind of meeting live, and we're meeting here. She's one of the I'd say the best interviewers in America, a journalist, worked for CBS, the Weather Channel, and now I'm pleased to announce she's going to be with me here and interview me about blue zones and take your questions and bring them to life. And I don't know, Adriana, are you there? She joined. So until she, as you can probably tell, this is one of my first live events on Instagram, and I'm just learning how to make it work. So, just to go back, the idea of blue zones actually, there we go. Oh, there she goes. I see her.
Ask her to request to join.
Adriana, if you can request to join, then I will hit the button and you'll be with us live. So until you do, the idea of blue zones really was born, I hate to say it, almost 20 years ago. It was an idea of reverse engineering longevity. So only about 15% of how long the average person lives is dictated by genes. The other 85% or so is dictated by or your environment. And we, with National Geographic and the National Institutes on Aging, we figured, why don't we just go find the parts of the world where people are living statistically longest and learn what they're doing, and from that distill a de facto formula for longevity. And with that, we now have the master herself, Adriana, looking beautiful there.
Hi.
Where are you coming from?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to see you. Do we have a good connection?
I have a good connection.
Okay, you can hear me. Everyone can hear. Okay, great. I'm coming from Los Angeles, California, in my daughter's room, because you never know.
And I'm coming to you from my kitchen, so this is very down home.
Dan, okay, I'm sure everybody else watching here can agree, but you are a genius. I mean, here's the thing, like we learn in Journalism 101, you're never supposed to fawn over who you're interviewing, but I can today I'm going to fawn just a bit.
Because, I love you.
But no, truly, like I think what you've done with the blue zones, creating this kind of concept and lifestyle and sharing with the world about longevity and how we can live longer, healthier and happier is really groundbreaking. It seems like we've gotten distracted over the years, right? Stressing ourselves out, more packed into the day, like that the simplest pleasures and taking care of ourselves has sort of been forgotten. So when I became introduced to the blue zones and I got this blue zone,
I love it.
100. By the way, you did not ask me to pimp this, but I'm just such a fan, and we, sort of live by this. So if you haven't gotten one, be sure to get your hands on it, guys.
Thank you.
I realized, okay, this is like what I've been searching for, and I would love to ask you so many questions. Obviously, we're on your Instagram page, but we're going to run this later on my Instagram page. So for some of the people who follow me who may not know as much, hopefully we can like break it down a little bit.
So just for a minute, give us a little bit of your background. I know you're celebrity in your own right, CBS News, the Weather Channel, but talk a little bit about where you come from and how you've gotten here.
Yeah, so I always kind of knew I wanted to get into entertainment news. It wasn't so much about like the car accident on the side of the road, but about the glitz and glam because it was fun. It was a distraction for me. You know, it like kept everything very surfacey and light. And I've always been talent struck. So whomever is best in their field, I want to interview them. I love interesting people. So from an early age, I wanted to go this route. And I went to school in Boulder, Colorado, which is incredible, and came back, went to Palm Springs, where it's hot and also incredible. Had my first job there on air, started working for Access Hollywood and E and Extra, and did all the red carpets, and love every second of it still. Like, it's never lost on me how exciting it is to kind of feel the pulse of it all. I was at CNN, the epicenter of breaking news in Atlanta for years, and now I'm back home. I also lived in Vegas. We were shooting Extra over there. I work with people now. I also work with a company called Local Now, who's owned and operated by the Weather Channel. And we do a lot of lifestyle content. Now, what I can tell you is I became a mom back in 2014. I have 2 young children. And when that happened, life really changed. I felt like I was concerned that I was going to lose my focus of my career and what I wanted to do. In fact, it really made me more dynamic as a person and made me understand life better. I was able to bring those skills and kind of perspective into life. But why I'm telling you about this is because I think it's really important for people to understand. I was raised here in LA, surrounded by every diet under the sun. My father, I don't know if you know this, Dan, my father's the chief of nutrition at UCLA.
Oh my gosh.
His name's Dr. David Heber. He's an incredible scientist, a lot about oncology research. He's changed lives, saved lives. He's one of the most humble men. And even I said to him, you've got to learn more about the blue zones, which now, of course, he's a fan as well. But all of his is about colorful fruits and vegetables on your plate, staying active. Yes, he agrees in plant-based. So let me backpedal for a second. While healthy eating has always been sort of a marquee of my life, I think it's easy to get caught up with the who looks skinnier, why do I look fat on camera, this person, you know, and it's unhealthy. So now that I'm turning 40 this week, I want to, and I think probably a lot of your viewers also can agree that it's all about being healthier, longer, happy and healthy. So my goal is to live happy and healthy until 100. Not about being the skinniest or fitting into the jeans. Yes, that feels nice. But I think there's so much damage that is done to young women, especially. I was on a show called On the Lot, and I used to read the hate mail, and it was like, why is her ass so big? Why does she look so fat? Like, I've had an agent say to me before, you probably need to take a little weight off. And it was
Ouch.
detrimental to somebody who's in their, mid-20s and just trying their hand at all this. So point is, how do you stay healthy? How do you stay happy, grounded, active? All those things. I happen to be plant-based myself, but always was. So anyway, you're just the things you brought to us, the information, the knowledge, the recipes, incredible. Enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Thank you.
That was long.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, with most of what drives people to seek greater health or longevity in this country is misguided or just plain wrong. I, in fact, believe that if you are overweight in this country, it's probably not your fault. We live in a food environment where 97 out of 100 choices that are presented to us every day are negative choices. The number of fast food restaurants in the last 50 years has gone up by a factor of 26. We are genetically hardwired to crave fat and crave salt and crave sugar and take rest whenever we can. That's how we survive for most of human history. So then but we have these genes for scarcity and hardship, and now all of a sudden we are marinating in an environment of abundance and ease. And you just can't escape the candy bars and the burgers and the fries and these rich, delicious foods. And think about Los Angeles. I mean, there's all this great food, but how many restaurants can you go and find a whole plant-based meal that tastes delicious? There's a handful of them, but there's not that many. In Middle America, it's even worse. So for Blue Zones, I really try to take the guilt off of people. I actually do not point fingers. I actually really don't even believe it's people's individual responsibility to be healthy because they're fighting a losing battle. But I do think it's our responsibility at a certain point to lock arms, to say to our local governments, which is what we do at Blue Zones cities around the country, and say we need to shape an environment that sets people up for success instead of setting them up for failure. To put limits on them, a number of junk food restaurants, to put limits on how much we can market sodas and chips and fries to children, and to take part of the $3.7 trillion healthcare bill, money we squander for the most part, and put it back into making the healthy choice the easy choice. And I think that's where a lot of the opportunity of making people not only healthier, live longer, but look more beautiful along the way.
It's so interesting to kind of expand on that. And Dan, maybe this is a new opportunity that you can take on. But so my kids after school always want McDonald's. And as a mom, it's like, I don't want to get out of the car and have to get them out, put them back in. So I'm thinking, like, why can't there be a healthy drive-in? I mean, I don't understand, make it, this is super opposite of the Blue Zones where you're supposed to walk to get your food, but at times when you want convenience, there really are no healthy kind of drive-through options. And another problem I've noticed is there's a ton of misinformation. So when people think that they're eating a plant-based burger that's healthier, yes, in a way, perhaps it is, but that still has 20 grams of fat and filled with oils, and the public doesn't know. Or you're going to a place like Starbucks and you think you're getting a matcha tea and it's like healthy but then you've got all the additives the average American may not know. So there's like so much confusion out there, consumer confusion. I also wish that people if it was a little more simplified for them. But like you said, if the options were lessened and better options were replaced, then we would be doing the dirty work for them, or the hard work, right?
Yeah. By the way, Lisa just came on and said she loves that idea of a healthy fast food drive-in, as do I. We need to make it easy. Also, a few other people came on, which I'm kind of excited about. We have Sandy from Hungary. We have the health advisor from Brazil. We have Franny from Los Angeles, who helped us run one of our Blue Zone projects in the beach cities there. So it's so much fun to see people from all over the world come in. I've used this medium once before. This is only my second time, so it's such a thrill to see how kind of the world comes to you into our kitchen and your daughter's room, Adriana, and participates in this conversation.
Dan, it's hard to believe also, had to Wikipedia you and see what I did. You look incredible for your age, and I really believe
I'm 104, by the way. People don't realize that it's Blue Zones eating.
Best endorsement of the truth, because look at you look so strong and healthy, and your background was in competitive cycling. Is that right?
There was a phase of my life when other college graduates were doing useful and productive things with their lives, I biked from Alaska to Argentina, biked around the world and across Africa. I biked across the Sahara without sunscreen, which explains these wrinkles. But I did that for 8 years before, moving on and getting into journalism and writing more seriously.
So I got to ask you, since you've seen the world in a really unique and special way, what have been sort of your favorite areas to visit?
The Sahara Desert, for as difficult as it is, austerely beautiful. I'm always been most interested in traditional peoples. I'm a big believer that you should know your sense of purpose. We know this from Blue Zones, that people who know their sense of purpose and can articulate it live about 8 years longer than people who are rudderless in life. And here's my purpose. I've thought about my life purpose is finding traditional people, interacting with them and mining their wisdom so that other people can live better. So when you ask me what my favorite places are, they're typically places where I've had the time to get to know a culture and individuals and bring it back. So we did a series of expeditions in Central America around the collapse of the ancient Maya. And we discovered from those people that the same things that brought down this beautiful civilization in the 9th century is also threatening to bring down American civilization. And, that kind of inquiry led to Blue Zones. And the Okinawa, Japan, you have the longest living women in the history of the world. And how do they live along? Do they have NutriFit and supplements and CrossFit? They don't have any of that stuff. And I sat with 502-year-old women for 2 nights in a row, and I watched them. And what has fueled their century of longevity? They have lifelong friends who they've committed to. They have ikigai, which is actually a vocabulary for longevity. They eat about 8 times more tofu than Americans do. They have gardens. That was one of the most powerful things we see all over the world. I have to say, I love Ikaria, Greece. There's if people want a Blue Zones experience, there's a guest house called Thea's Guest House in Ikaria, Greece. Anybody can go there. She is the consummate Blue Zones maven. You can eat Blue Zones food, sit right on the Aegean, but you'll sit on her deck and family will come, an extended family in the village will come, and you'll really marinate in that Blue Zones experience. Anybody can go there. Costa Rica, the Nicoya Peninsula, Nocera or Ojancha, welcoming, loving people. A lot of people speak, even though it's people speak Spanish there are enough people who speak English you can have an experience. Somebody's asking me now, do I have my favorite recipe from my travels? And yes, I can tell you what it is. If you just Google Blue Zones minestrone, this minestrone was made by the longest lived family in the history of the world. 9 siblings, and their collective age was 841 years. The oldest one was 109. Every day of their life, they made this 3-bean soup with potatoes and tomato, garlic, herbs. It is just a longevity elixir. By the way, I have it for breakfast every day, and that's my favorite recipe.
Yeah. What does your diet look like, Dan? Like, if you could give us sort of a daily.
Yes. So right now I'm practicing. So one of the things we see in Blue Zones is they tend to eat all their calories in an 8-hour window. Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper, or no dinner at all. And I try to follow that. I usually have a very late breakfast, about 11 a.m. And I like a savory breakfast, because the problem is when you get into cereals, there tend to be very high glycemics. We put oat milk or soy milk or even regular milk. That's actually pretty high in sugar. And then if you're a meat eater, you're eating eggs and breakfast, and those are saturated fat that are going to weigh you down. So I almost always have some sort of a soup, either a chunky miso soup or the minestrone soup for breakfast. I'll put avocados on it. Then I tend to have a mid-afternoon smoothie. And, once you get over actually about your age, and you've been generous and let us know you're 40, even though you look like you're about 27. But protein is, as you get older, protein is important. And it's important that you have it throughout the day. And in Blue Zones, people are getting their protein from plant-based sources. So I have a soy powder, and I have put blueberries and then some oat milk and some cinnamon in there, which makes it taste sweeter without having to add sugar. And then for dinner, I'm a big fan of having dinner with people I love. I have dinner every night that I go out with people, and there's a dozen or so restaurants where I live where I know I can get a good plant-based meal. And once you figure those out, or else I like to host meals. So big breakfast, smoothie in the afternoon, and an early dinner. And I like to be done with dinner by about 6 or 7. So then my digestive system has 18 hours or 16 hours or so to reboot and make the most out of my calories. By the way, somebody said they love my hairdo. Adriana found me 3 LA hipsters. I flew them here for the day to get my hair just right. So am I ready for the red carpet?
$1,000 later. You know, because
No, this is the Dan Buettner. You know, this is about as good as it gets with me.
there was something I was going to say. Oh, there's just so much. One of the things that really worked for me with the blue zones is what you can drink. So water, or what the blue zones typically provide, right? Water, tea, wine, coffee. So
That's right.
I'm good for coffee and wine and a ton. But a lot of times I think when people are trying new diets or changes in their lifestyle, they try to get rid of alcohol. And that is not, I'm not a big drinker, but I love a glass of wine at the end of the day. It's like a glass to a glass and a half. I'm super regimented with it, but it is the best. So the fact that I didn't have to kind of omit that from my daily, diet or eating routine made a really big impact for me. It was very important for me. And then coffee in the morning. It's like, I can't start the day without it. So I love that. You talk a lot about community and purpose, and what is it, from 10 to 100, each person in different stages of life have different forms of responsibility.
Yeah, I would say their purpose, it's not just about what's my hobby or my purpose is travel. It's not a selfish pursuit in Blue Zone. Purpose necessarily has a responsibility element to it. So you often see older women who feel like their responsibility is passing down a craft to a younger generation, or supporting a younger generation, or doing something for their community. And I think that's important. We're also getting a lot of questions I hear asking about how much sleep they get. And I can tell you, on average, centenarians report about 8 hours of sleep a day. And it typically is pretty go to bed early and wake up early. It tends to be with circadian cycles. Questions here also about, you're talking about wine. I know there's a lot of studies that suggest that women who drink alcohol have higher rates of breast cancer, but there are also plenty of studies that show that people are drinking 1 or 2 glasses, and we even see in the blue zones 3 glasses of wine a day, especially with food, especially with the plant-based meal, that those people have lower rates of mortality. So, and coffee is the #1 source of antioxidants in the American diet, which is probably more commentary on the American diet than it is on coffee, but that seems to be a net positive. So there's a couple things that we can enjoy, and I know you enjoy them, with impunity, as long as we're doing them, in moderation. Coffee before noon, and no more than 2 or 3 glasses of wine with your meal at the end of the day. And also want to say hi to Chad Byrne here, who's coming up. And there's some questions about, somebody just came in from Norway. So I just want to thank you and celebrate the people who are part of this conversation, Adriana. So I'll throw it back to you.
Oh, and I think you raised so many good points. Somebody asked, one of the viewers over here asked about dessert. This seems to be like a major weak area for many women, men as well. But there are certain times, literally based on a woman's cycle, I think, where you crave sweets even more. What do you suggest during those moments, sort of after dinner, when people want to go to the cupboard and start eating popcorn or cereal or snack, if they need sweet?
Let me tell you a diet that will fail for sure. And it's a diet that does not allow you to indulge once in a while. That's the wrong way to do it. I think we should all be able to treat ourselves with the foods that we like on occasion. one of the ways, the best ways to do it is don't bring it home. If you like ice cream, fine. When you want it, when you're craving ice cream, go out to an ice cream parlor. But I don't know if you're like me, Adriana, but if I have I eat soy ice cream, but if I have a pint of soy ice cream in my refrigerator, that will, Danny, I'm here. Danny, I'm here. And that thing won't last a night. But if I know not to bring it home, I'm not going to eat it. So I think the biggest thing is enjoy your desserts once or twice a week, but just don't have them in your home. The desserts that we see in blue zones, people aren't generally eating desserts on a day-to-day basis in blue zones. They'll have a piece of fruit at the end of their meal. That's usually the universal dessert. However, during a festival or a wedding, there's always some sort of cultural pie or pastry that all the women get together and make. And it, you know, people eat a lot of it, but it's during a festival. That's why in blue zones, traditionally, fewer than 2% of people are suffering from obesity. And it's not because they're not enjoying life. It's not because they're not having big, voluptuous meals or treating themselves once in a while. It's because these treats are celebratory foods, not pancakes for breakfast, a cookie for lunch, and then a piece of pie for dinner.
Right. And, you know, somebody just mentioned something very, this person saying dates, and people were suggesting at the end of a meal, dates or strawberries, berries. Sometimes I'll do some dark chocolate. I don't overdo it, but a piece of dark chocolate, I incorporate. I don't know your feeling about that, Dan. But somebody was mentioning environmental factors that are really out of our control, air pollution, things like that. Sort of how do you avoid it? How, well, there is really no way to avoid it. I guess that's not the question, but I guess if you're living a blue zone, I don't even know what the question is here, but they're really unavoidable factors.
Yeah, I'll address that. First of all, I want to shout out to the plant-based addict, and not just because he says I'm an absolute legend. He's a legend himself, but hi there, plant-based addict. This is a guy, by the way, who weighed about 300 pounds and went on a whole food plant-based diet. And now the guy is a total stud. Look him up if you will. But so this again gets back to our environment. So we see this in both, you know, I wrote a cover story for National Geographic on happiness, and I wrote a cover story for National Geographic on longevity. And it's the most important thing that any one of us can do to live longer and to be happier is either set up our environment the right way, or if we're in a bad environment, move. And that may sound like a stretch, but I actually checked this with the U.S. Census Bureau. The average American moves houses about a dozen times in their adult life, and that gives you a dozen times to set up your surroundings for longevity and happiness. So we know, for example, if you live near a freeway, your chances of asthma go up by a factor of about 5. We know that if you live near green space, even if you have a window that looks out at green space, people report higher levels of happiness. We know that if you live within a mile of a real grocery store where you can get produce, and in a place where there are fewer than 3 fast food restaurants within 5 blocks of your house, your chances of obesity go down by about 30%. We know if you live in a neighborhood that doesn't have billboard advertising, your chances of obesity goes down by another 10%. My point is that far more important than trying to remember the right things to eat, or trying to wake up every morning on top of, people are busy. They got jobs. They're worried about the pandemic. They're worried about their kids. They're worried about their finance. Now to have to worry about their diet and getting enough exercise, it's just too much for us. But you can set up your life so these things happen naturally. If you move your house close to your work, it becomes easy to walk to work. You don't have to worry so much about going to the gym. If you live in a neighborhood where there's lots of healthy fruits and vegetables and beans and restaurants that make them taste delicious nearby, you don't have to think it's going to be easy. You're going to do it all the time. So I know this is a bit of a rant, but the rant is, if you want to live longer or be happier, don't try to change your behavior, change your surroundings.
No, that's such a great tip. I heard you say that on the Today Show, and I thought, wow, that's so interesting. I mean, because you are asking, in a sense, you're telling people take a step that could be out of your comfort zone, but really, ultimately, it's one step back for 10, 15 steps forward. Um, Somebody's asking about Mary, I believe, asking about craft beer. Here's the sort of two-part to this: craft beer, and then after that, there are several restaurants here in LA that are plant-based, not necessarily whole foods. So they'll do like their take on soy chicken, and there some of those ingredients I believe are processed. I personally I eat that stuff a lot. So what's your take first on alcohol outside of wine, so like craft beer, and then the processed plant-based foods?
So first of all, when it comes to alcohol, it seems like 1 or 2 glasses of whatever kind of alcohol, 1 or 2 ounces of hard spirits or glasses of beer are fine. In blue zones, people do drink different kinds of alcohol. I like to talk about the blue zones wine because it has higher levels of antioxidants and resveratrol and polyphenols that will lessen arterial inflammation. But any kind of drink, at the end of the day, it'll lower your cortisol levels. It tends to be something we gather around, and a little bit of alcohol actually helps your stomach absorb the antioxidants in plant-based food. So craft nice beer, can or two or bottle or two a day. I personally believe, from what I know of blue zones, no problem at all. As far as these plant-based meats, I think they're a gateway drug. The average American eats about 209 pounds of meat a year, and meat is like radiation. We know that a lot will kill you. We don't know the safe levels. That what we learned in blue zones is eating meat about 5 times a month, maybe once a week, might be a safe level, or I personally believe no meat at all is better. To wean ourselves off the meat habit, I think these Beyond Burgers or the Impossible Burger, they're slightly healthier alternatives, but they tend to show you don't have to have meat at the center of your plate every day. But in Los Angeles, there Crossroads, the great restaurant, Gracias Madre, great restaurant for eating plant-based. Minneapolis here, Tao Foods, fantastic. In Philadelphia, Veg, one of the great high-end whole food plant-based restaurants in the world, delicious food. Right now I'm traveling around America putting together the Blue Zone's American Kitchen, which discovers, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but we're discovering that among the ethnic cuisines 100 years ago, there are these fantastically delicious and basically whole Blue Zones food traditions. So in other words, the standard American diet will kill about 750,000 people this year. This is from the CDC statistics, not my own. But if you go back about 100 years and you look what African Americans were eating, Asian Americans were eating, Latin Americans and Native Americans, they were eating a Blue Zones diet. Whole food, plant-based, celebratory meat and celebratory sweets once in a while. And lo and behold, there may be an American diet that could save the planet. And I'm going to capture it.
See, you really are changing lives. Like I need you, as one of the viewers said, you are legendary. Because as sort of, it's not a primitive diet, but these were more primitive cultures. They came before us, yet this whole concept of Blue Zones seems so evolved to me, so simplistic and so evolved. I want to tap into a second about what you mentioned in regards to community and friendships, that you need 3 friends, is it, to check on you each day?
Yeah, so that's the technical definition of loneliness. So if you're lonely in America, it shaves about 8 years off of your life expectancy. It's as bad for you as smoking a half a pack of cigarettes a day. The way loneliness is measured is if you have 3 people who, number one, you can have a meaningful conversation with them. So not just gossip about celebrities and sports, but like you could talk about, not that that's not important. I mean, that's my regular diet, but of social diet, but but really, if you're talking about your feelings or things you're worried about. I mean, the big one is, can you call this person on a bad day and they'll care about you? So, it's really easy to have friends when your chips are up and you're buying drinks and you're happy. But if your boyfriend or girlfriend just dumped you, can you call and have a conversation with somebody who will listen to you cry? Will listen to you, just hear you out for an hour. That's a real friend. And then it has to be a friend you actually like and see once in a while. It can't just be a Facebook friend or, Instagram friend. You have to be able to connect on a human level. So 3 friends that meet those criteria, worth about 8 years of life expectancy.
Unreal. Is there any great or piece of advice? I know you post a lot about this, but something that's really stuck with you from the people you've met over the years in blue zones, 1 to 2 pieces of advice that you want to share, something that really informed your thinking.
I interviewed 300 centenarians, and there was not a grump in the bunch.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they may exist. I just didn't see them. But I think one of the big pieces of wisdom I learned from these, and most of them are women, by the way. Most people who make it past 100 are women. For every 1 male centenarian, there are 5 female centenarians. So like most things, you women do it better, including longevity. But the importance of being interesting, to develop the skill to tell a good story or to dispense wisdom in a measured way, but also being interested, to not just yammering away, what do I know, but really being really interested in what other people know and other people's feelings. Generosity is very important. Empathy is very important. These sort of peripheral skills, you might call them, are actually very important when it comes to longevity. There's a few very practical reasons. Likable people tend to get better health care. The doctors linger more, the nurses come in more, but also likable people are more socially connected. People are going to come over and knock on your door. There was a 109-year-old woman I met in Arzana in Italy named Raffaella. And every day at 3 o'clock, she'd come sit out on her patio, which is on the way back and forth to school. And all these little children would stop by and say hi to Raffaella. And she didn't give them candy or any treats or anything. She'd lay her hand on their head and give them a little blessing. And they would just come by and spend, a minute but she'd have 30 of these kids that come back and say hi to Raffaella every day. And that just made my heart sing. And you could see how these kids gave her joy, gave her a reason to wake up in the morning. And she gave them, at the end of the day, all we really have to give people is our heart and our minds. And developing the ability to do that is so important for both longevity and then of course happiness.
I've heard that young kids today, like my son is 7, just turned 7, but that these children, this generation, could live easily into their hundreds. Like 105 would be typical. It would be sort of comparable to like an 80 today. Do you know anything about or hearing anything about that?
It's sort of outside my expertise, actually. I do know that when the iPhone came on the scene in 2011, that's the exact same time that depression and suicide among younger people started spiking. And I also know that the loneliest cohort of people between the ages of 16 and 100 are the people in their early 20s. So we are becoming a more disjointed society here, and less connected, and I think hungry for purpose, hungry for something more than just likes on Instagram. Though, I don't mind.
A gratification that is easy to fall into. I also am a victim of that. But what COVID in itself, it's just well, you saw that suicide was up, but you know, I'm an extrovert. You are as well, and also the travel component that was gone, and just leaving my house and this sort of sense of freedom being taken. I did not do well during COVID. I was waking up every day kind of miserable. Thank goodness everyone surrounding us was okay and healthy, but just the mental toll it took was pretty devastating. I don't know if you felt that at all.
I'm a contrarian actually, and that I was on a plane about 200 days a year. The year before, I'd written Blue Zone Kitchen. I wrote a big story for National Geographic. I do about 50 speeches a year. We have 42 Blue Zone project cities I had to visit. I was busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, as my mother puts it. But the COVID actually gave me an opportunity to slow down. And I live now in Miami most of the time. So I live right on the beach in a very walkable community. And quite frankly, in a community that didn't take COVID restrictions probably as seriously as they should have. But I found this last year I had more time to reconnect with people on a soulful level through Zoom and through vehicles like this. I had time to take stock. I've been able to sharpen what my purpose better and follow that. And I really think I'm going to be among those people who look back on the good old days of COVID. I needed to downshift, and it was a gift for me. But that said, I do recognize people have lost loved ones. They've lost their jobs, which, by the way, I'll give you a Gallup statistic. Only 31% of Americans, this is from a survey of 2 million American workers, only 31% find purpose in their work. That means 69% of people they're just showing up. So most people, I think, who lost their job, it can be looked at as an opportunity to now find a job that really speaks to your purpose, like you and I have, Adriana. And so in the long term, even though I recognize it's tough in the short term for a lot of people, I think there's a lot of us that are going to look back and say, wow, I got queer. I spent more time with my family. I had a chance to change careers here. And I hope it's not going to be as bad as it's felt for the last year.
Do you travel alone or with a crew or family? Who do you go with?
When I do my Blue Zones project works, we have 200 people around the country and full-time staffs in the cities that we work in. I don't know if anybody from Fort Worth, Texas, or Naples, Florida, or the beach cities of Los Angeles, or Erie, Pennsylvania, Albert Lea, Minnesota, the big island of Hawaii, Maui, Oahu, all the great Blue Zone cities out there. I'm saying hello to all of you. But when I get there, I'm always surrounded by people. But when I do a speech, I just go alone. It's set up. I usually speak for hospital associations and corporate events, and usually any event where people want to learn how to live longer or be happier. And then when I do my expeditions and work for books, I work with National Geographic. I work with a great photographer named David McLean. You can Google him to see he shot all the pictures in Blue Zone's kitchen, he and I. And we often have a fixer who makes sure that our time is, all the interviews are set up and the logistics are taken care of. So it's a little bit of both. I prefer to travel with people. I think we're a lot alike, Adriana. I don't like necessarily, I like being alone a little bit to recharge, but mostly I like the company of people. Especially cool people like you.
Thank you. Even the human touch, it was so weird, like not being nervous about like hugging friends or.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize how much I needed that until it was gone. And then just to give somebody a hug, you're like, wow, the human connection is really important, especially through touch, in my opinion. Dan,
no question.
Are we missing anything? Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, well, we'll take maybe 5 more minutes here. If people want to send their question, we'll pay attention to the feed here for maybe 5 minutes and answer some questions of people. But I just, as we kind of wind down, a few of the most important things I think you can do to add extra years to your life. Number one, pay really close attention to who your 5 best friends are. we know that if your three best friends are unhealthy and overweight, you're about 150% more likely to be overweight yourself. Uh, uh, Excessive drinking is contagious. Drug use is contagious. Even unhappiness is contagious. And I'm a big fan of curating. I'm not saying necessarily dump your old toxic friends, but I am saying that one of the most dependable things you can do to add good years to your life is to pick a few people who you become really close to, whose idea of recreation is playing tennis or walking or bicycling, who care about you on a bad day, who challenge you, who are accessible to you on a regular basis. And I'd also argue to have one vegan or vegetarian in your immediate social network, because they're going to show you what restaurants are good. They're going to expect you to learn a few recipes so that when they come over to your house, they can eat. And then when you go over to their house, you're going to learn how to what delicious plant-based food looks like.
Okay, so I caught questions. Do you want some?
Sure.
Somebody was asking about our exercise routines throughout the day. What do you focus on?
The key is do something every day, but make sure you like it. I'm not a big believer in going to the gym or CrossFit if it's agony, but just an hour-long walk gives you about 90% of the health benefits of training for a marathon. So I happen to love yoga, stand-up paddle surfing, pickleball, bicycling. I lift weights with my son because it's a social thing, and I just rotate it up, whatever I like to do today, and live in a walkable neighborhood. And yeah.
I love yoga. It's so people will say to me, like, if you want to, tighten up or whatever, you can try spinning or whatever. And exactly what you're saying, Dan, but I don't want to do that. I so much more mentally tune into a hot power yoga class that it's giving me everything I need for my brain and my body, in my opinion, and then walking as well. Somebody asked about CBD and marijuana use. Do you have any comments on that?
I know marijuana was used in Icaria, in one of the Greek blue zones, but you don't see it a lot in other places. So I can't really. I don't have enough evidence from a blue. What I like to keep my comments focused on are what people in the blue zones have done. I see my friend Kelsey Paw on. Her movie is gonna become an Academy Award-winning movie. Google Kelsey Paw. And she's amazing. Kelsey Law is her real name. I also saw a question about beans. All right. The #1 longevity food in the world, I believe, is beans. If you feel like you need to take a supplement, I recommend 125 black beans a day, ideally in the company of a corn tortilla with some hot sauce on it.
Yes.
If you're eating a cup of beans a day, it's worth about 4 extra years of life expectancy over eating no beans at all.
How incredible. And people start, I think in LA too, it's really prevalent. It's like, well, I can't have the carbs. It's like, and I need to remind myself this as well. The carbs become such a focus, but those are good carbs and it's protein and carbohydrates and you're not overdoing it. Any comments about that?
I think carbs is one of the worst and most confusing words in the lexicon of nutrition. It's a horrible word because carbs are beans, but they're also jelly beans. Carbs are lentils, but they're also lollipops. So make no mistake, in blue zones, 65 to 70% of their dietary intake on a day-to-day basis was carbohydrates, but they were healthy carbs. 5 kind of carbs: whole grains, rice, wheat, corn, greens, probably 100 types of greens, tubers, nuts, and beans. Those are the 5 horsemen of the blue zone diet. They're all carbohydrates. Of course, you want to stay away from donuts and cookies and jelly beans and sweets, except for occasional treat. But carbs are your friend.
Dan, who just stepped in is Samantha Harris. She's also an entertainment host, and she's the most in shape woman in the world. So Samantha, hi.
Hey, Samantha.
And I introduce you to her. I bet
I
that
love it. Blue Zones, you know, the fact that we've attracted you to come interview me and now we have Samantha Harris, I think we might be becoming cool.
you are cool. Cool. We are currently legitimate. Maybe
Yes.
we're legitimized. I have to tell you, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I constantly preach your teachings. I really do. Talk about eggs 3 times a week, 1 egg 3 times a week, or I'll talk about fish 3 ounces 3 times a week. So people ask, what do you do? What do you think is healthy? They know I've been plant-based my whole life. I've never really eaten chicken or turkey, certainly not at cows, none of that. And my mom used to try to enforce it. You need protein, you need protein. And since I was 8 and 9 years old, I never liked it. Yes, I have moral dilemmas with it, but also I didn't like it.
A cup of lentils has more protein than 3 eggs. So people don't realize that plant-based protein is just as good. It's in most ways better than animal protein. You have to eat a little bit more, and you have to be conscious of pairing a bean with a grain to get a whole protein. But there's no cruelty in that meal. There is no saturated fat. There's no hormones. There are not the aggregation of toxins you get with animal based protein. So.
And you'll never hear somebody who goes plant-based from eating meat and says, I feel the same. Everybody will tell you, I feel so much better. I feel lighter and more agile, and I can take on more. And it's just, I have not enough good things to say about it.
Fantastic. Well, Adrienne, thank you so much for taking this time. We've just become Instagram friends. This is the first time we've really met. And I was starting to say at the very beginning, people like to malign social media as a waste of time or losing our attention spans. But you're one of these examples. I don't know if you like something of mine or I like something of you. Pretty soon we became friends and we followed each other and realized that, we have nothing our lives had never intersect except for on Instagram. And I feel blessed that I now consider you a friend, and we've met face to face and, with, it looks like 500 other people today. And it's really been a joy. And I look forward to building the friendship with you and actually building the friendship with everybody else who've come on today. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And all people who've taken the time to ask a question, give us a comment, or just listen in. If you have any other questions, you can direct message me. I'm you know where I am. I will take the time to answer your question. I'm sure, and I encourage you guys to follow Adriana. She's a celebrity. She is one of America's best journalists, but she gives us a glimpse of her family life and what she does to stay young and beautiful now into her fifth decade. I know that's a cruel way to put it. I know you've just turned 40, but by the way, 40 is the new 20.
So they say, is that the truth? Because we've said these things to make ourselves feel better. Do you honestly believe it?
Well, put it this way, your life expectancy is probably 20 years greater than your grandmother's life expectancy at your age. So, yeah.
Okay.
And every decade, life expectancy goes up by about 2 years. So by the end of you'll easily live 20 years longer than your grandmother did, on average. Maybe I'm not sure how long your grandmother. So yes, you're 20.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Dan, it is such an honor. I mean that. I've interviewed, George Clooney and Brad Pitt, who, by the way, love. It is such an honor to sit down with you. I think your work is so powerful, and I will continue on a small scale, whatever I can do, just sharing your teachings. So thank you.
Very much. All right, Ed. Don't be a stranger. Maybe we'll see you in real life someday.
Promise. I would love that.
And thank you, everybody else.
Thanks, guys.
Love you guys. Yes, the virtual hug. All right. Ciao, ciao.
And bye.
Bye.